Hey all, your OS reviews. In the past, we've checked out a couple of Zink, standing for Zero Ink printers that have been popularized by brands like Polaroid, Kodak, even Fujifilm has them, along with HP. So they're compact, portable printers that create these small sticky note-sized prints, essentially, and the reason why the entire printer is so small is because the paper is special. There are tiny crystals embedded inside that, when activated by heat, then produces color. So by having different varying amounts of heat, different crystals are then showing up. For example, 200 degrees Celsius will activate the yellows, 150 degrees Celsius will activate magenta, 100 degrees will activate cyan. So the printer itself only needs to have heat instead of liquid that we typically find in inkjet printers, for example, so it's less messy and more compact. But today we're taking a look at an alternative to Zink. It still promises portability, but this time around it's using a technology called thermal dye sublimation. Instead, you have the colors, which are then transferred using the thermal head onto the piece of paper. Each of the dyes are essentially layers, for example, the blue, the red, as well as the yellow, and then after, say, 20 prints or something like that, you have to then swap that piece out. But when you do swap it out, if you pull the entire thing apart, you can still see some shadows or residues of essentially the image as it was being pressed onto the piece of paper. And so as a result, when the actual paper or photo is being printed out, it does it in 3 different sections. It first prints out the blue layer, and then it prints out the magenta layer, and then the yellow layer. So it goes in and out of the printer a couple of times compared to Zink, which comes out all at once. The claim for dye sublimation is that it becomes a little bit more vibrant, and the results should technically look just a little bit more realistic, more well saturated compared to Zink that has a tendency to be just a little bit more muted, nostalgic in its tone and vibe. So here are just a couple of examples that they have and kind of a breakdown of some of the different technologies available on the market. So again, dye sublimation using heat transfer of pigments onto a piece of paper versus thermal activation of crystals already in the special paper for Zink. So it'll be interesting to see if those claims are true in this video, and we're going to check out the HPRT CP2100, and this is their newest dye sublimation mini printer. Just like on a Zink printer, it uses wireless connectivity with your phone to transfer over the images, and then they can be saved and shared easily with friends and family members. If you want to preserve something physical in this digital world that we are increasingly living in, it touts a fairly good 300 dpi and 256 colors that are capable of being represented. Includes around 10 sheets of paper in the box, and afterwards you can purchase replacement sets at a similar cost per photo as on Zink prints, which comes out to roughly around 70 cents per photo. Now, unfortunately, this model though, the CP2100, seems to come in only one color, which is in this pink shade. I do wish they would make some more options available, whether it's gray, green, blue, black, something like that, but it is what it is, and it does have enough power, they claim, for around 20 to 30 prints before you have to really recharge it again. And on the inside, we have just the printer itself along with a quick user guide. The companion app can be downloaded for both iOS and for Android. And then down below here, we have just a USB Type-C charging cable. And a closer look at the design of this mini printer, it is quite cute, I have to admit. It's styled after a digital camera or point and shoot, and it has almost this lens design with a self-portrait vanity mirror as well. But obviously there is no actual camera built on in, unlike some of the instant cameras of yesteryear. That being said, there are some status LED lights that are cleverly embedded where the flash otherwise would be, and the entire build is made out of a polycarbonate plastic but has a bit of soft touch rubber going on as well. And on the very top here we have just a power key, USB Type-C for charging, and the paper will come out here from the front. Otherwise, to access the paper as well as swap out the essential ink cartridge or the dye sublimation layers, you just have to tap on the middle section, which is where the camera lens design is, and the door here will then pop open. And then you can just pull on the section to swap out this entire cartridge once it runs out. So this cartridge includes the paper, which is baked in, as well as the, again, ink basically that gets transferred onto these pieces of paper, and it's enough for the, again, pieces that are included inside. Aside from popping the ink onto the paper, there's also what looks like a saran wrap texture that also is the final layer that covers the paper to make it smudge and water resistant. I guess one slight downside to this convenient form factor, though, is it does seem to produce a little bit more waste compared to Zink or Z-ink, because on this alternative technology, since the ink is already baked into the pieces of paper, you're basically just replacing paper that you can swap out, compared to, again, the dye sublimation alternative here, where you have to also recycle or throw away some plastic. And therefore, from an environmental point of view, I would argue that perhaps Zink might be a little bit more practical, especially since the cost per sheet of print averages out to be roughly the same at the end of the day. But this is just an alternative technology to consider. And when you're done, you just pop it in like this, and you're ready to go once again. In terms of dimensions, you can also tell how the dye sublimation printer is still going to be a touch larger than most of the Zink alternatives, just because there are a few more kind of ribbon heads and cartridge components that it has to fit on in. But overall, it still is pretty compact, all things considered, especially when you pair it against something like a smartphone. It's still going to slide pretty easily into a backpack. Turning on the printer, as well as taking a closer look at the companion app, it actually takes around 10 to 15 seconds to initialize. Once you have Bluetooth and location services turned on, it will be pretty easily connected. You can tap on here, and afterwards you're able to play around with a few different templates. For example, you can create a collage. So here's one such example, and I've selected around 7 images, and it will automatically generate a template to have all these images be printed out into one particular sheet. They're going to look smaller, but you're able to achieve more prints at once, and you're also able to play around with a few different other template ideas for rearranging these tiles as well that you can also completely reshuffle if desired, their position on the collage, as well as whether you want to rotate or apply any filters on top of each of the individual photos that you're selecting. This is pretty neat. One slight downside, though, is in the collage mode, you're not able to apply the AR video effect. So if you want to have AR video, you can only select a single image as the full print. What I'm effectively able to do is select any video I have on my phone, and it will be stitched onto the particular photo in the future. You can select different parts of the frame as well that you desire. So let's say I want to only capture this section of the video. I'll tap on OK. And then the next step is just going to be selecting a photo that we want to print out. That video will then be saved in kind of a secret way onto this image. There might be some type of code or pattern, but it's actually invisible to the human eye. Whenever this photo gets scanned in the future, that video will start to play. So here is an example, and on the single image, we can apply a few different filters and effects. For example, boosting up the brightness, the saturation, contrast, as well as adding things like sharpness, vignetting onto the image. Some of the effects do require an internet connection, but here are some examples of frames that you can add onto the photo if you want more of a kind of playful effect going on here, depending on the type of image that you're going after, and they can be pretty fun to play with. We're going to just discard this for now. Other stickers that you can add on as well, including emojis, patterns, and all of the ones that you add on here can also be rearranged in terms of their size, and also adding text is available too if you want to say something on top of the photo, and you can also have that be placed in a specific way that's a little bit more cute or fun with a cartoon-like font that you can also play around with, including text style, the color of the text as well, so plenty of customization that you have available. But let's just do a simple print. We'll tap on Done, and afterwards we can just click on Print if we're satisfied, but this will show us a preview as well as how many copies we want to print out. So it's actually just directly hit on Print Now, and it will show you the process happening there. It will first send it over using Bluetooth. Typically takes around 20 to 30 seconds, depending on the file size and the resolution, and once it's ready, it will then start to print out in the different layers. So the first step is actually not really visible to us. It's just checking that there's a piece of paper that is available. And then the second step will then begin to print out the individual colors. It'll start off with yellow, and as you can tell there, prints out the bottom section of the image there in yellow, and then it will retract And now printing the magenta layer on top, the image starts to become more recognizable, retracting once again for the third layer, which is blue. That's going to be the final one as far as color is concerned to complete the result. So pretty cool that you have a real-time visualization as the print is happening in front of us. But it will retract one more time to get the finishing layer laminated onto the photo to make it water resistant and smudge proof instantly. So covering the film. And there we go. Now the entire print is all set up and done. So again, the entire process takes about a minute or so compared to on a Zink print, which is roughly going to be half of the time since it only has to heat up the crystals and then kind of push it out of the printer, basically. All of the layers, including the smudge resistancy, is already baked into the special paper that Zink uses. So again, the benefit here is that the actual paper itself that the dye sublimation printers use don't necessarily have to be anything special, and also perhaps the images that you are getting out of it just look a little bit more vibrant and contrast rich, similar to a traditional printer. Here's kind of a side-by-side of a similar shot of a garden that has, again, those trees, and that really shows off the difference in contrast and vibrancy between the Zink technology here as well as the dye sublimation. Kind of a nostalgic look or memory feel to it if you're going after that vibe, but this is a lot more realistic, and indeed it is smudge proof similar to Zink, so it's going to be dry basically instantly because of the layer of film on top of the photo. And again, I do like how it has almost this shimmery effect depending on the light that you're shining it on, just very contrast rich and quite vibrant to look at. What I will say though is, interestingly, there is kind of this edge on the paper, which I think in an ideal world it should be completely centered, but perhaps that's to make it a little easier to peel back the back and then to stick it onto other objects as a sticker. We're going to click on the AR icon up top, and afterwards it's going to be able to recognize the photo here and play back the video that we embedded onto this image, as you can tell there. So it's kind of a trippy augmented reality effect, and it's actually done quite well. It's able to recognize that even as you're moving the photo around in different directions, the tracking doesn't seem to get lost that easily either, and it actually is quite cool, creating this dynamic effect in front of you. You can also go closer in. It also shows a little bit more detail as well. So it's recognizing it just fine using the companion app and then tapping on that AR icon. Otherwise, the final mode that the printer here is capable of producing is designed for ID photos. So for things like passports, if you're trying to get a more professional headshot, you're able to tap on this to trigger it. You can also capture it in a 4x4 collage as well, or select on the standard size for, again, passport/visa. The dimensions will also be scaled properly, so when you print it out, you can just trim it a little bit with scissors and you're ready to go. So that can be convenient as well, and gives you a few templates. And the final section down below provides you with some additional templates that have been shared by the company as well as other users. Change also the title and then add your own photo down below. Now maybe the only feature that seems to be missing on this app is a way for you to save your own creations, as well as maybe some of the photos you printed previously. Some type of history function would have been nice, so you're able to then print out the same shot again without having to apply the same effects, the same templates over it in the future. Now also, you don't really get a gauge of, say, how many photos are remaining before the battery runs out, and also maybe how much are remaining before the prints run out inside of the cartridge. So those are some of the other smart details that I think could be worth considering to make it even more simple to use and intuitive. Ultimately, the performance from a color as well as contrast perspective, again, are definitely superior to that of Zink. However, it does come at the cost of, again, slightly slower print times and perhaps some environmental cost. Whether that's going to be worthwhile for the better print performance, I think, is subjective and down to each of our own individual preferences. But still, I think this is a kind of neat alternative if you are trying to explore the world of pocket portable printers. You can learn more details if you are interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the HPRT CP2100.